Maya had always been the odd one out, while other kids played video games. She spent hours learning new languages and studying different cultures. Her friends thought she was weird for collecting books about ancient civilizations and watching documentaries about space exploration. But Maya didn't care what others thought. She knew she was meant for something bigger. At 28, Maya was working as a language expert and cultural researcher when something incredible happened. Scientists made contact with beings from another world. These weren't the scary aliens from movies. They were called the Luminari, and they were peaceful, intelligent creatures who wanted to learn about humans just as much as humans wanted to learn about them. The government created a special program called the Galactic Cultural Exchange Project. They needed people who could communicate with the Luminari and help both species understand each other. Maya was one of the first people chosen. Her heart raced when she got the call. This was her chance to make history. The Luminari were nothing like humans. They were tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to glow softly in the light. Their eyes were large and deep, like looking into a calm ocean. They spoke in musical tones that made even simple conversations sound like poetry. The males of their species were known for being incredibly smart and emotionally wise. At least, that's what everyone believed. Maya packed her bags with excitement buzzing through her veins. She would be living on a space station called New Horizon for 2 whole years. The station floated between Earth and the Luminari homeworld, serving as a meeting place for both species. It was like a small city in space, with laboratories, living quarters, gardens, and even recreational areas. On her first day aboard New Horizon, Maya felt like she was living in a dream. The station was beautiful, with curved walls that showed stunning views of space. The Luminari had designed parts of it to feel like their home world, with soft lighting and flowing architecture that seemed to breathe with life. Maya's quarters were small but comfortable, with a window that looked out at the stars. Dr. Peterson, the Human Project director, gave her a tour of the station. He was a kind man with gray hair and gentle eyes who had been working with the Luminari for 3 years. Remember, Maya, he said as they walked through the cultural center. You're not just here to study them. You're here to build bridges between our worlds. These relationships matter more than any scientific discovery. Maya nodded eagerly. She had read every report about the Luminari, studied their basic language, and prepared for this moment her entire career. She was ready to make those connections Dr. Peterson talked about. Her first meeting with the Luminari was in the station's main hall. 3 of them glided toward her with movements that seemed to flow like water. Their leader, an elder named Cosmic Dawn, welcomed her with a gesture that involved touching his forehead with 2 fingers, and then extending his hand toward her. "Welcome, young seeker of knowledge," Cosmic Dawn said in perfect English, though. His voice carried those musical tones that made Maya's heart flutter. "We have heard much about your dedication to understanding. We look forward to sharing our ways with you." Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. These beings seemed so wise, so advanced. They had technology that could heal diseases instantly, and art forms that could make people cry with beauty. Yet here they were, treating her like an equal, like someone worth knowing. During her first week, Maya attended daily sessions where Luminari teachers shared their history and culture. She learned that their society was based on harmony and emotional balance. The males were especially gifted in what they called heart wisdom, the ability to understand and connect with the deepest feelings of others. This made them natural leaders and partners. Maya found herself drawn to their way of life. Everything seemed so peaceful and meaningful. There was no rushing, no stress, no anger. The Luminaries spoke about emotions like humans talked about science, with precision and deep understanding. They could sense feelings that humans didn't even have names for. At night, Maya would sit by her window and look out at the stars, feeling more hopeful than she had in years. She had always struggled with relationships on Earth. Human men seemed so focused on surface things, sports, money, showing off. They didn't seem interested in the deeper questions about life and meaning that fascinated her. But here, surrounded by beings who valued wisdom and emotional connection above all else, She felt like she might finally find what she had been searching for. The other humans on the station were friendly enough, but Maya felt more drawn to the Luminari. There was something about their presence that made her feel calm and understood. When she walked through the station, the Luminari would nod respectfully and sometimes stop to ask thoughtful questions about her work or her thoughts on some philosophical topic. Maya started spending her free time in the shared areas where both species gathered. She would sit quietly, listening to the Luminari discuss concepts that seemed to touch the very essence of existence. Their conversations were like music, flowing from one deep idea to another. She felt like she was finally among people who understood what really mattered in life. As her second week began, Maya noticed that several of the younger Luminari males seemed particularly interested in her. They would approach her with questions about human culture, but their questions went deeper than simple curiosity. They asked about human emotions, about how humans experience love and connection, about what made humans happy or sad. Maya found these conversations thrilling. Finally, she had met beings who wanted to understand not just what humans did, but how they felt about it. She began to believe that perhaps, in this place among the stars, she might find the deep, meaningful connection she had always dreamed of. Maya's third week on New Horizon changed everything. That's when she met Zara, a Luminari male who worked in the station's philosophy department. He was younger than the other Luminaris she had met, with skin that glowed a soft blue and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. When he spoke, his voice carried melodies that made Maya's heart skip. Zara approached her one evening in the observation lounge, where Maya often sat watching the stars. Your thoughts create beautiful patterns in the air around you, he said, settling gracefully beside her. Among my people, we can sense the energy of deep thinking. Yours is particularly fascinating. Maya felt her cheeks warm. No one had ever noticed her thoughts before, let alone called them beautiful. I was just thinking about how small we are compared to all of this, she said, gesturing toward the vast space outside the window. But size is just one dimension, Zara replied, his musical voice making even simple words sound profound. The complexity of your human consciousness creates ripples that reach far beyond your physical form. You are not small, Maya. You are infinite. From that night forward, Zara sought her out regularly. They would spend hours discussing the nature of existence, the meaning of emotions, and the connections between all living things. Maya had never felt so intellectually stimulated. Zara seemed to understand her thoughts before she even spoke them. He would nod knowingly when she struggled to express a complex idea, then help her find exactly the right words. Your species fascinates me, Zara would often say. The way you feel so deeply, yet think so clearly. It's a rare combination in the universe. Maya began to fall for him. How could she not? He made her feel special, understood, valued in ways she had never experienced. When other humans on the station seemed busy with their routine tasks, Zara would find her and ask about her inner world. He wanted to know about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. He listened to every word with intense focus, as if she were sharing the secrets of the universe. But after 2 months of these deep conversations, something changed. Zara began to seem distant during their talks. He would ask the same questions he had asked before, as if he had forgotten her previous answers. When Maya tried to share something new about herself, he would redirect the conversation back to topics they had already covered extensively. Tell me again about human loneliness, he would say. Explain once more how your species experiences heartbreak. Maya felt confused. Why did he keep asking about painful emotions? When she asked him about his own feelings, he would give vague answers about Luminari emotional practices, but never shared anything personal about himself. Then Maya met Kale, another Luminari male who worked in the station's art department. He created stunning light sculptures that seemed to capture emotions in pure energy. When he showed Maya his work, she was moved to tears by the beauty of it. You have such a strong response to beauty, Kale observed, watching her reaction carefully. This is another fascinating aspect of human nature. Your emotional responses are so immediate and intense. Kale began inviting Maya to his studio regularly. He would show her new pieces and watch her reactions with keen interest. He asked detailed questions about how different colors made her feel, what memories certain shapes triggered, how beauty affected her physically and emotionally. Maya felt special again. Here was another brilliant being who seemed genuinely interested in her inner experience. Kale would spend hours discussing art, creativity, and the connection between emotion and expression. He made her feel like her human perspective was valuable and unique. Your species is such a raw, honest way of experiencing beauty, Kale would say. It's so different from our more refined approach. But just like with Zara, after a few months, Maya noticed a change. Kale's questions became repetitive. He seemed more interested in cataloging her reactions than actually connecting with her. When she tried to learn about his own artistic process or personal experiences, he would deflect the conversation back to her responses. Maya began to feel like she was performing rather than sharing. Both Zara and Kale seemed to be studying her, rather than getting to know her. The pattern became clear when she met Thane, a Luminari diplomat who initially seemed different from the others. He was more direct in his communication and seemed to understand human customs better. He would bring her small gifts, flowers from the station's garden, books about Luminari culture, recordings of their music. I want to understand your world as much as you want to understand mine, Thane told her. True connection requires effort from both sides. Maya felt hopeful again, finally. Someone who seemed to want a real relationship, not just to study her. Thane would ask about her work, her family back on Earth, her hopes for the future. He seemed genuinely interested in her as a person. But even Thane eventually revealed the same pattern. After months of what Maya thought was genuine courtship, she realized he was asking the same questions over and over, taking detailed mental notes of her responses, and showing no real interest in sharing his own thoughts and feelings. Maya started to feel like a laboratory specimen. Every conversation felt like an interview. Every emotional response she had seemed to be carefully observed and mentally recorded. The Luminari males weren't falling for her. They were studying her. When she tried to bring up her growing discomfort with Zara, he responded with clinical detachment. Your concerns are understandable given human attachment patterns, he said. This reaction is quite typical of your species when forming emotional bonds. Maya's heart sank. Even her feelings about being studied were just another data point to him. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She wasn't a person to these beings she had admired so much. She was a research subject. Her emotions, her thoughts, her vulnerabilities, everything she had shared thinking it was bringing them closer together, was just material for their studies of human behavior. Maya began to withdraw from the Luminari males, but they continued to approach her with the same questions, the same request for her to share her feelings and reactions. They seemed puzzled by her sudden reluctance to engage, treating her emotional withdrawal as yet another interesting human behavior. To examine and understand, she felt trapped, studied, and completely alone despite being surrounded by beings who claimed to value emotional connection above all else. Maya's 15th month on New Horizon was the loneliest time of her life. She had stopped attending the daily cultural sessions and spent most of her time in her quarters, staring out at the endless stars. The excitement she had felt when she first arrived seemed like a distant memory from another person's life. Dr. Peterson noticed her withdrawal during one of their weekly check-ins. You seem different lately, Maya. Is everything okay with the project? Maya wanted to tell him everything, but how could she explain that the beings everyone admired for their emotional wisdom were treating her like a lab rat? How could she say that the males who were supposed to be so enlightened were actually cold and calculating? It would sound crazy, especially since the other humans on the station seemed to be having positive experiences. I'm just tired, Maya lied. It's been a long assignment. But the truth was, she felt broken inside. Every interaction with the Luminari males had left her feeling more empty and confused. She had given them her trust, her vulnerability, her deepest thoughts and feelings, and they had taken all of it just to add to their research about human behavior. Maya had almost given up hope when she met Orion, a young Luminari researcher who worked in the station's medical bay. He seemed different from the others right away, where the other males had been formal and poetic. Orion was more casual and direct. He had a gentle laugh and a way of making even serious topics feel light and manageable. "I heard you're having a rough time," Orion said one day when Maya came to the medical bay for a routine health check. "Station life can be tough, especially when you're so far from home." Maya was surprised by his straightforward approach. The other Luminari males had always spoken in riddles and metaphors. Orion just talked like a normal person having a normal conversation. "Yeah, it's been challenging," Maya admitted, not wanting to say too much. "I get it," Orion said, checking her vital signs with practiced ease. "I've been studying humans for a few years now, and I've noticed that your species needs genuine connection to thrive. Not just intellectual stimulation, but real emotional bonds." Something in his tone made Maya look at him more carefully. He wasn't speaking like he was analyzing her. He was speaking like he understood her. Over the following weeks, Orion began seeking Maya out during her off hours. Unlike the other males, he didn't immediately start asking probing questions about her emotions or reactions. Instead, he would share stories about his own life, his work, his thoughts about the cultural exchange program. "I sometimes wonder if we're doing this whole thing wrong," Orion confided one evening as they sat in the station's garden area. "My people are so focused on understanding humans that we forget to actually connect with them." Maya felt a flutter of hope. Finally, someone who seemed to see the problem she had been experiencing. "What do you mean?" "Well, connection isn't just about gathering information," Orion explained. "It's about sharing experiences, being vulnerable with each other, caring about someone's well-being just because they matter to you, not because they're useful for research." Maya found herself opening up to Orion in ways she hadn't with anyone in months. He seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings, not as data points, but as parts of who she was as a person. He would remember details from their previous conversations and ask follow-up questions. That showed he had been thinking about what she said. "I've always felt like I didn't fit in anywhere," Maya told him one night. "On Earth, I was too interested in deep things. Here, I feel like I'm just a specimen to be studied." Orion listened without interrupting, his expression showing genuine concern. "That must be incredibly isolating. No one should feel like their emotions are just research material." For the first time in months, Maya felt understood. Orion seemed to care about her comfort and happiness, not just her responses to various stimuli. He would bring her books he thought she might enjoy, share music from his culture that wasn't part of the official exchange program, and ask about her day because he actually wanted to know how she was doing. Maya began to believe that maybe she had been wrong about all Luminari males. Maybe Orion was showing her what genuine connection with their species could look like. She started to trust him with her deepest fears and insecurities. The wounds left by her experiences with the other males. "I feel like I'm broken somehow," Maya confessed one evening. "Like there's something about me that makes people want to study me instead of love me." Orion took her hand gently. "There's nothing broken about you, Maya. You're just incredibly honest and open. That's rare in the universe. Some people don't know how to appreciate that gift." Maya felt tears in her eyes. These were the words she had been waiting to hear for so long. Finally, someone who saw her pain and wanted to heal it rather than examine it. The relationship grew deeper over the following months. Orion would spend hours with Maya, sharing his own struggles and fears. He told her about the pressure he felt to live up to his people's expectations, about his doubts regarding the research being conducted, about his dreams for a more genuine form of cultural exchange. Maya fell in love with him completely. Here was a being who combined the intelligence and wisdom of the Luminari with genuine emotional warmth and caring. He seemed to understand both worlds and want to build real bridges between them. But Maya's happiness was shattered when she accidentally discovered Orion's private research files while using his computer to access some medical data. he had offered to share with her. The files were labeled Human Emotional Recovery Patterns and Trauma Response in Isolated Subjects. With shaking hands, Maya opened the files. Inside were detailed notes about every conversation they had shared, every vulnerable moment she had experienced, every tear she had shed. Her confessions about feeling broken were labeled as excellent examples of human self-doubt. Manifestation. Her trust in him was described as successful rebuilding of subject confidence after systematic emotional disruption. The worst part was a video log where Orion spoke clinically about his methods. The subject responded well to perceived empathy and shared vulnerability. He said to the camera, "By presenting myself as different from previous researchers, I was able to gain deeper access to her emotional patterns. The trauma responses from her earlier experiences actually made her more receptive to my approach." Maya realized with horror that her entire relationship with Orion had been an elaborate experiment. He hadn't been different from the others at all. He had just been more skilled at hiding his true intentions. Every moment of connection she had felt was fake. Every word of comfort he had offered was calculated to get a specific response. She wasn't just a research subject to these beings. She was a test case in emotional manipulation. Maya sat in her quarters that night, staring at the stars and feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. She had given everything she had to these relationships, and every single one had been a lie. The beings she had admired for their wisdom and emotional intelligence were actually cold, calculating researchers who saw her pain as nothing more than interesting data. The next morning, Maya made a decision that shocked everyone on the station. She requested immediate transfer back to Earth, abandoning her prestigious assignment with 6 months still remaining. She couldn't spend another day being studied and analyzed by beings who pretended to care about her. Maya's return to Earth felt like waking up from a long, confusing dream. After 18 months among the stars, everything seemed smaller and duller than she remembered. The sky looked flat compared to the endless space she had grown used to. The sounds of traffic and people seemed harsh after the gentle, musical tones of the luminary. But the worst part was the questions. Everyone wanted to know why she had left the most prestigious assignment in human history. Scientists, reporters, and government officials all asked the same thing. What went wrong up there? Maya couldn't tell them the truth. How could she explain that the emotionally advanced beings everyone admired had treated her like a laboratory animal? How could she say that the males who were supposed to be so wise and caring had manipulated her feelings for their research? It would sound like she was making excuses or couldn't handle the pressure. "I completed my primary research objectives," Maya would say whenever anyone asked. "I felt it was time to return and share my findings." But inside, she was falling apart. The betrayal by Orion had shattered something deep inside her. She had trouble sleeping and barely ate. Some days, she would just sit by her apartment window, staring at the sky and wondering if she would ever trust anyone again. Dr. Peterson had helped her get a teaching position at Riverside University, a small college in the countryside. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet and far from the media attention surrounding the space program. Maya hoped that teaching young people about different cultures might help her remember why she had loved this work in the first place. The university was beautiful, with old brick buildings covered in ivy and wide lawns where students would sit and study under the trees. Maya's office was in the Humanities Building, a cozy space with tall windows that looked out over the campus quad. She filled it with books and a few artifacts from her time with the Luminari. Though looking at them still made her heart ache, Maya threw herself into her work, but she struggled with connecting to people. The other professors were friendly enough, but their conversations felt shallow after her experiences in space. They would talk about department politics or their weekend plans, while Maya found herself thinking about the deep philosophical questions she had discussed with the Luminari. Even though those conversations had been fake, they had awakened something in her that regular human interaction couldn't satisfy. When it came to dating, Maya felt completely lost. The men she met seemed so ordinary compared to the intellectual sophistication of the Luminari. They would talk about sports or their jobs. And Maya would find herself bored and disconnected. But at the same time, she couldn't stand the thought of someone being too interested in her thoughts and feelings. Every time a date asked probing questions about her experiences or emotions, she would panic and end the evening early. Maya felt trapped between two worlds. Human men seemed too simple, but the memory of the luminary's cold manipulation made her afraid of anyone who seemed too interested in understanding her inner world. She began to think that maybe she was just broken, that her experiences in space had damaged her ability to form normal relationships. Winter arrived early that year, and Maya found herself spending most of her time alone in her office, grading papers and preparing lectures. The heating system in the humanities building was old and unreliable, often breaking down when the temperature dropped. Maya would sit at her desk wearing her coat, trying to focus on her work while her breath made small clouds in the cold air. That's when she first met Jake, the university's maintenance supervisor. He was a quiet man in his early 30s with kind eyes and calloused hands. That spoke of years of honest work. When he came to fix the heating in Maya's office, he noticed her luminary artifacts on the bookshelf. "Those are beautiful," Jake said, pausing in his work to look at a crystal sculpture that changed colors in the light. "Are they from your time in space?" Maya was surprised by his simple, direct question. Most people either avoided the topic entirely or bombarded her with complicated questions about alien technology and interstellar politics. Jake seemed genuinely curious, but not pushy. "Yes, they're from the Luminary," Maya said carefully. "They're quite skilled artists." Jake nodded and continued working on the heating unit. "That must have been incredible, living among beings from another world. I can't imagine how different everything must have been." There was something in his tone that made Maya look at him more carefully. He wasn't asking for details or trying to get her to share her experiences. He was simply acknowledging that she had been through something remarkable and probably difficult. "It was educational," Maya said, which was the safest answer she had learned to give. Jake smiled at her diplomatic response. "I bet it was. Well, your heat should be working now. The whole system in this building is pretty old, so I'll probably be back next week to check on it." After he left, Maya realized she felt a little lighter than she had in months. There had been something refreshing about Jake's straightforward approach. He hadn't tried to analyze her or dig into her experiences. He had simply fixed her heating and made friendly conversation. Over the following weeks, Jake did return regularly to maintain the building's temperamental systems. Each time, he would greet Maya warmly and ask simple questions about her day or her classes. He never pushed for personal information or tried to get her to talk about her time in space. Instead, he would share stories about his own work, tell her about interesting problems he had solved around campus, or mention books he was reading. Maya found herself looking forward to these brief visits. Jake had a calm, steady presence that made her feel peaceful in a way she hadn't experienced since before her time on New Horizon. He seemed content with his life and work, without any need to prove how smart or sophisticated he was. One snowy afternoon, Jake brought Maya a cup of hot coffee when he came to check on a pipe that had frozen overnight. "Thought you might need this," he said, handing her the steaming mug. "This old building doesn't hold heat very well." Maya was touched by the simple gesture. "Thank you. That's really thoughtful." Jake shrugged. "It's no big deal. I know how cold it gets in here." As Maya sipped the coffee, she realized that Jake had noticed her discomfort and done something to help, without making a big deal about it or expecting anything in return. It was such a basic act of kindness, but it meant more to her than all the elaborate philosophical discussions she had shared with the luminary. Maya began to understand that maybe she had been looking for connection in the wrong places. She had been drawn to complexity and intellectual sophistication, but what she really needed was someone who cared about her comfort and well-being in simple, practical ways. Jake represented something she had never fully appreciated before: genuine human kindness without hidden agendas. Spring brought new life to the university campus, and Maya found herself feeling hopeful for the first time in months. The trees were budding, Students were spending more time outside, and the old heating system finally stopped giving her trouble. But the biggest change was in her growing friendship with Jake. What started as brief conversations during his maintenance visits had grown into something deeper. Jake would sometimes stop by her office just to chat, even when nothing needed fixing. He would bring her coffee on particularly busy days, share funny stories about his work around campus, and ask genuine questions about her classes and students. Maya began to notice things about Jake that she had missed at first. He read philosophy books during his lunch breaks, not to impress anyone, but because he genuinely enjoyed thinking about life's big questions. He treated everyone on campus with the same respect, whether they were professors or fellow maintenance workers. He remembered small details about people's lives and would ask follow-up questions about their families, their hobbies, their concerns. You know, Jake said one afternoon as they sat on a bench outside the humanities building, "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about how different cultures show respect in different ways." Maya was surprised. She had mentioned something about cultural differences in passing, not expecting him to give it much thought. "What about it?" "Well, it made me realize that maybe respect isn't just about following rules or traditions. Maybe it's about really seeing someone as a person and caring about their well-being, no matter where they come from or what they've been through." Maya felt something shift inside her chest. Jake's observation was simple but profound. He had taken her casual comment and found something meaningful in it, not because he was trying to analyze her or gather data, but because he was genuinely interested in understanding the world better. As their friendship deepened, Maya found herself sharing more about her experiences in space. Not the painful details about the emotional manipulation, but the wonder she had felt at seeing new worlds, the excitement of learning about different ways of life, the challenges of being so far from home. Jake listened without trying to fix anything or offer advice. He would nod and ask thoughtful questions, but he never made her feel like she was being interviewed or studied. When she mentioned feeling homesick for a place that had never truly accepted her, Jake simply said, "That sounds really hard. You must be incredibly strong to have gotten through that." His words weren't fancy or poetic like the luminaries had been, but they reached something deep inside Maya that all their elaborate speeches never had. Jake saw her strength rather than her vulnerability. He appreciated her resilience rather than cataloging her pain. One evening, as they walked across the quiet campus together, Maya realized she was telling Jake about her darkest moments on New Horizon. She found herself explaining how isolated and used she had felt, how the beings she had admired had treated her like a research subject rather than a person. "They made me feel like a lab rat," Maya said, surprising herself with her honesty. "Like everything I shared with them was just data for their studies." Jake stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious. "That's not okay, Maya. I don't care how advanced or intelligent they were. Treating someone's feelings like research material is wrong. You deserve better than that." Maya felt tears in her eyes. No one had ever said that to her before. Everyone else had focused on the scientific value of her experiences or the importance of maintaining good relations with the Luminari. Jake was the first person to simply acknowledge that she had been hurt and that her pain mattered. "I started to think there was something wrong with me," Maya continued. "Like I was too emotional or too needy or something. There's nothing wrong with you," Jake said firmly. "You're one of the most genuine people I've ever met. You care deeply about things, and you're not afraid to be vulnerable. That's not a weakness. That's a gift." Maya looked at Jake in the soft light of the campus, street lamps, and realized something that took her breath away. This man, who had no advanced degrees or sophisticated technology, who worked with his hands and spoke in simple, honest words, understood her better than beings who claimed to be experts in emotional intelligence. Jake didn't try to analyze her, or fix her or learn from her. He simply cared about her happiness and well-being. When she was cold, he brought her coffee. When she was sad, he listened. When she doubted herself, he reminded her of her worth. He did all of this not because he wanted anything from her, but because he had a good heart. Over the following months, Maya and Jake's friendship blossomed into something deeper. Their first kiss happened on a warm spring evening as they sat by the campus pond, talking about their dreams for the future. It was gentle and sweet. Nothing like the calculated romantic gestures she had experienced with the Luminari. "I never thought I'd find someone who gets me," Maya whispered against Jake's lips. "I never thought I'd find someone who sees the world the way you do," Jake replied. "You make everything more interesting and meaningful." Maya realized that she had spent so much time looking for someone who matched her intellectual interests, that she had missed the most important thing, finding someone who matched her heart. Jake might not be able to discuss quantum physics or create energy sculptures, but he could do something far more valuable. He could love her for who she was, not what she represented. As their relationship grew, Maya found herself healing from the trauma of her experiences in space. Jake's steady, honest love showed her what genuine connection really looked like. It wasn't about impressive conversations or shared expertise. It was about two people caring enough about each other to be vulnerable, to be kind, to be present for each other's joys and sorrows. Maya started writing about her experiences, turning her painful journey into a book that would help others understand the importance of emotional honesty in relationships. Jake encouraged her every step of the way, reading her drafts and offering feedback that was both supportive and insightful. "You're going to help so many people," Jake told her one evening, as she worked on a particularly difficult chapter. "Your story matters, Maya. What you went through wasn't okay, but you're turning it into something that will make the world better." 2 years after Maya's return to Earth, she and Jake were married in a small ceremony on the university campus. As Maya looked out at their friends and family, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had traveled to the stars looking for connection and understanding, but she had found it right here on Earth, in the honest love of a man who saw her heart and chose to protect it. The alien males had failed her because they could understand her mind but not her soul. They could analyze her emotions but not honor them. They could gather data about human feelings but not actually feel compassion for a human being. Jake succeeded because he offered her something that no amount of advanced evolution could create: a genuine human heart that beat in rhythm with her own. He showed her that true connection wasn't about intellectual sophistication or emotional analysis. It was about two people choosing to care for each other day after day, in simple and profound ways. Maya had found her home at last, not among the stars, but in the arms of someone who loved her exactly as she was.